What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Acts of Creation. Now, power chords, very much like the pentatonic scale, are the bedrock of so much of what we do in pop, rock, and metal music, right? They're the foundation for so much of our playing. But they tend to get a bad reputation, all they do is play power chords by the music elitists, right? But we're here to talk about 10 ways that power chords can teach you how to play the guitar. So let's jump in. So number one, right? Let's start with our beginners, right? Power chords make a great step from single note to power chord to bar chords, right? It's a great first goal post. And so many beginners start out not being able to play power chords because they're difficult, their hands aren't wide enough. It's just the guitar is an awkward instrument. So we can go from, say, something like using just single notes, and then the next stepping stone, power chords. Right? And they make a great bridge. They help us learn our bar chords, right? Because if I look at this major bar chord right here, look at these three notes right here. Those three low strings. Well, that's a power chord, right? So if I can do this, well, then I can maybe add my middle finger, get that major chord, and then eventually I'll be able to do the whole bar chord. So they allow us to kind of start playing more, sound a little thicker, and as well as, setting us up for success as we learn those infamous bar chords, right? So sticking on that path of beginners, right? Once you're able to move around your power chord a little bit, it allows us to kind of build your song or riff repertoire, right? I hate to throw out the word easy, but there are tons of simpler riffs that you can play that involve nothing more than power chords, right? I think of Iron Man, for example. Right? Or some Nirvana songs. And right away, we can start showing people, our friends, our loved ones, that we're making progress. We can play songs and riffs that they recognize, and that just empowers us to continue learning. Building off of that last idea, power chords give us an opportunity to start learning about rhythm, about strumming, and about, muted or percussive notes. Right? Once we can start moving those power chords around, now we can take something like right? And now we can kind of start to understand simpler rhythms. 1 and 2 and 4, and we can start to understand quarter notes, eighth notes, and different strumming patterns, right? Doesn't always have to be just straight quarter notes or straight eighth notes, right? As well as rhythm, we can talk about percussive or dead or muted notes, as they say, right? We all know. How many of us, that was our first riff that we learned, So that, not only do we learn the rhythm of that and up and down strumming, but we can learn to kind of left-hand mute, right? One of those unspoken secrets of guitar playing. And then we can hold the chord and just lift the pressure out of our hands, and now we're becoming percussive and rhythmic in nature. One of my favorite aspects, and I talk about this on the channel all the time, I think it's important for guitar players, is to understand the concept of a chord scale, okay? Now, we don't have to get into the major minor aspect of all of that, especially if we're early on in our playing, but we can still play power chords going up and down the scale. Right? And we can start using that to learn notes around the guitar and eventually kind of learn, like, okay, well, this song uses these chords, and look, it outlines this chord scale, and you get used to those frets. Hopefully we can change those frets to note names in the future, otherwise we get stuck in that pitfall, you know? For example, we all know that song, right? But look at what chord scale he's using. Everything that Metallica does tends to be in E minor, and next thing you know, all of those notes are just right across the scale, right? Super important to learn, and then you can see that in a band like Metallica, and next thing you know, you can look at 3 or 4 songs and you can see how they're doing that. You become comfortable with that key, right? And then hopefully you can move it to other keys. And in that same vein, right, concept of learning a chord scale, it allows us to explore keys, right? For example, metal players' favorite key tends to be Phrygian, you know? So I can sit here and play a root note, a half step up, a whole step behind the root, and I'm just using power chords, but I'm learning the sound, the color, the taste of that dark Phrygian kind of sound. Right? I'm kind of learning what that feels and sounds like. Okay? Moving on to number 5, right? Changing your power chords can teach us octaves, right? And what the cool thing about octaves is, it's the same shape or pattern that you find in a power chord, okay? And what do I mean by that? Let's just say I'm playing a power chord right here, right? If I take my ring finger and put it on a string higher, same shape, different string, now I'm playing an octave, which is the same note, okay? And that's a nice thing that you could add to your power chords. Play something as power chords, play something as octaves, right? Start hinting at intervals and what that means, and start learning different shapes, just like the power chord helps us get to the bar chord shape, okay? So picking up on what we did with the exploring keys moment in the Phrygian, well, let's go to E major, a very common and popular key, sounds great on the guitar. Let's say I'm doing... Well, that might sound a little thick, a little muddy down there with the power chords. So I can take that power chord shape, make octaves. Kind of opens it up a little bit, gives it the riff, your idea, a little more space to breathe. Right? And it sounds really nice. Octaves, great and fun shape. Okay, number 6, right? And one of the most important aspects of rock, hard rock, and metal, and that's chugging, right? Power chords are great to learn proper palm muting, down picking, and how to chug through those chords, because so much of metal and hard rock is sloshing around power chords and just chugging on them. You know, and you're not going to get that sound doing anything else, right? So power chords are great for learning your chug, right? Emphasis on the down picking, that steady 8th note, driving forward rock sound. We have good palm muting over here, right? We're learning the right hand muting technique. We briefly spoke about the left hand, another unspoken rule, you know? And again, power chords, man. You're not gonna get that sound with any other chord. You know, something that goes hand in hand with chugging, down picking chugging, is alternate picking. Right? Another key component to so much of rock music, metal music, jazz soloing, whatever. You need to be able to alternate pick through things. And we can use our power chords and the chord scale that we talked about earlier, and we can start adding open string chugs in between everything, right? Right? That's an extreme example because it's moving really fast, but you get the idea, right? Keep bringing up Metallica because they're, the grandfathers of so much of the music we learn today. Right? Just open string chugs in between all of those notes gives us so much room to play and come up with ideas, as well as work on that right hand technique, which is so important, all thanks to moving power chords around. Number 7, let's get a little nerdy, talk a little bit about music theory for a second, right? And yes, power chords can help us here too, right? When we play a power chord, we're playing a root note and a fifth. What does that mean? Right? It means that note is 5 notes away. How many of you have been browsing on Tab website and you see the chords for the song and it's G5, A5, F5, and you think to yourself, well, what does that 5 mean? Well, this is what it means. It's telling you as a musician to play a certain note and a note that's 5 notes away. And on the guitar or piano, that's a power chord. Right? If I play a scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That note is the 5th note of the scale. So a root note and a 5th. Okay? Now, if that makes sense to you, well, then we can easily start talking about other intervals, maybe closely related. We touched on an octave before. An octave, like an octopus, has 8 arms. That's the 8th note of the scale. It's a repeat of the root. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1 again. Right? So now we have an octave, we have a 5th. We can easily learn a tritone, another angry chord found in metal. If I lower that down, we can learn that that is a flatted 5th. Right? We take the 5th note and we can flat or lower it by 1 fret. That gives us that note. We have a 4th. The 4th note of the scale. Right? And we can play fourths. Sometimes people talk about these as inverted power chords, right? If I go here, the octave is there. I have the same 2 notes, but now the shape is the 4th away from each other, right? I can play a power chord, play 1 up, a minor 6th. Right? And we can slowly over time geek out a little bit, dig in there, and start learning our intervals and what that really means, all thanks to starting with the shape of a 5th. Thank you, power chord. Number 8, we can learn major and minor chords just by adding 1 note to the power chord. All right? Let's say we're playing right here, 2 and 4 on the 5th string. Right? By adding 1 note, my middle finger here, not doing anything, I can put it on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. Now, if I play those 3 notes together, oh, that's sad. What kind of chord is sad? Oh, minor chords. Right, so right away, all right, we can start expanding our chord shapes, learning the quality of major and minor just by adding 1 note to the power chord, right? This note is minor. Major chords are brighter, so those notes are up. So I can take this note and put it up by a fret to 4, and there's my major chord shape, which is what you saw me do. Very common, sounds really nice. Okay, very useful for creative writing, and especially if you're having a hard time with bar chords, you can get away with doing that and get the same result. Okay? Number 9, piggybacking off of that idea, let's go the opposite direction. Instead of playing higher, let's play lower. Same chord, right? 2 and 4, 5th string. My middle finger still not doing anything, so I'm going to put it on the low string 3rd fret. That's interesting chord. This is now a major 7th chord, right? So by adding 1 note to our power chords, we can start incorporating the idea of major and minor 7th chords. Does that mean we're playing jazz now? No. But we have this major 7 shape, which sounds really nice. And again, kind of the opposite right here. If I raise this up one, that is now a minor 7th chord, right? These chords are phenomenal. I've talked about them on my channel in multiple lessons. Right, nice closed little shell voicings of 7th chords. Sound great, super creative, super modern sounding as well, if you're looking for that. All right? And last but not least, number 10, keep it simple. Power chords are a great way to start writing music, right? As well as being creative, which is the aspect of writing music. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. Again, I talk about this on this channel, right? Adding a lot of open strings. Well, I can take a power chord shape and play open strings, add 1 or 2 notes, and I have, ideas I can build off of. You can easily turn that into something fun, interesting, right? So again, all I'm doing is playing a power chord on the 4th string now, 2 and 4, and adding open A and open B. My middle finger's not doing anything. Taking what we've talked about, I've added 1 note. Put that on the 3rd fret. What does that do? Who cares what it does to the chord? What does it do to your ear, right? Now you're hearing movement. You're getting an idea of melody involved in your little riff. Take that down, put it on the 5th string. Back to the open, but now the note is here. And then I'm gonna take this and I'll put it here with my pinky's not doing anything. Oh, this is hard. Right? Jumped up to the E string, put my middle finger back down. So now I have a melody. On top of my very simple idea, and I'm just adding 1 note here or there, right? So there you go. 10 ways that power chords can teach you how to play the guitar. I hope you like this. This was a lot of fun to talk about. Down in the description below, you can find links for any of the tabs, as well as hit that subscribe button if you dig what's going on. Click the notification bell if you're new here, and as always, let me know what you come up with. Until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.